This is going to be a film study look at the versatility and all the ways that Scott Matlock was deployed in the Chargers' Week 1 preseason game against the Detroit Lions. As a Ravens, Lions, and occasional Seahawks content creator, I don't really have intimate knowledge of how many snaps Scott Matlock played on offense and defense throughout the years. I do know that he was a defensive lineman at Boise State and kind of had some cameos as a tight end in some jumbo sets, and actually I think caught 3 touchdowns. And then the Chargers have almost kind of flipped his deployment from 2023, his rookie year, to last season. Basically, his defensive snaps were cut in half from 266 to 137, and then plus 300 offensive snaps, including, I think, a surprise 18 or 20 or 21 snaps as a fullback / tight end in their Week 1 game against the Raiders in 2024. To see it all laid out in front of you is unique and fun, and as a Ravens fan, having knowledge of Pat Ricard's career progression, Matlock seems to be following in the same line. And so what I want to do first, not necessarily indicative of the quality of play, is just talk about how Scott Matlock must be practicing. It's difficult to find him on the field at times because 42 and 44, they have like similar body styles, and they're both deployed in the same way. To be honest with you, not being super familiar with the Chargers team other than their time playing against the Ravens last year, I didn't really know who Matlock was, either 44 or 42. I just knew that it was a hybrid defensive lineman / fullback tight end. Once I saw him get some defensive snaps last year against the Ravens and then this year against the Lions in the preseason, I realized, okay, he must be the guy that all the fuss is about. He's used in pass pro often. This is a 4th down touchdown pass from Trey Lance, who played really well against the Lions, in fact, where he's just pass proing. You'll see him on the second snap be used in motion across right to left for the offense, bottom to top for us, and then go in pass pro against an edge defender. It's a high standard that he must have in practice, meaning he's got to practice with the tight ends. He's got to practice with the fullbacks. At this point in the NFL, oftentimes tight ends are asked to fulfill fullback duties. It's very rare that you get fullbacks asked to fulfill tight end duties because so much of those jobs, can be accomplished by one player. You don't need multiple fullbacks and multiple tight ends. Matlock, however, has to play defense as well, along with special teams. So I'm guessing that on their practice plan or their coaching staff, you have the overall practice plan, the offensive and defensive coaches have their practice plan. Somewhere in there's got to be some notes, some stars, or an asterisk about where Matlock is going to be. They've got to be creative about it. And I'm going to show you one play in particular that, in my opinion, illustrates how much time Matlock has to spend with the offensive side and why maybe his defensive snaps were cut so heavily last year. It would be super interesting and challenging to see a guy get a plus 300 snaps on offense and 300 snaps on defense in the same year. You can see here he's on field goal team or extra point as a right side tight end eligible. This one happens to be a miss that I believe clanged off the upright. Defensive tackle, this is actually a really nice play. I wasn't aware when this happened live that it was Matlock who made this play. He's lined up in a 4-eye. It's going to be a run play away from him to the top side of our screen. 4-eye, when you get the end zone angle, basically means inside shade of the tackle. And in this case, they've got dual 4-eyes, so slightly inside shade there for 94, slightly inside shade here for Matlock. If he were head up, that'd be a 4. If he's in an outside shade, of 5. If his feet were way out here, be a wide 5. I think he's more of a defensive tackle type, not going to be lined up in a wide 5, certainly not brought in pass rush situations. But he's clearly trained. He's in a flatter stance than edge defenders would be. 57, a D end for the Chargers, is also in a flat stance, but he reacts well with his hands. Quick, strong, achieves lockout, and then uses his left arm to frame up that offensive tackle and then work down the line of scrimmage. Clearly, he's doing D-line drills every day and certainly spent a lot of time playing defensive line at Boise State. He is asked to do some interesting things at times. This is a pass rush situation against the Lions, and he's actually looping outside for contain. It ends up being the interception, Kyle Allen's first interception. So the Chargers are dropping out an inside linebacker. My guess is it's probably a check on the field because they got a bunch to the field, so the left side D end, whatever the play call was, however they disseminate their plays from the defensive coordinator into the green dot and then to all the other 10 players on the field. is if the left side defensive end, this was either called in the huddle, in the helmet of the green dot, or it's a check on the field. In any case, you will get the end zone angle of this one. Matlock is looping around for contain, and you can see he's not really trying to rush the passer. It does happen to be a 3rd and 9. I'm sure he does pass rush drills. One thing I was thinking in the production of this video was perhaps Matlock skips some of the pass rush drills because the Chargers, know they're not going to have him on the field most of the time in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 situations anyway, even though that previous play was actually a 3rd and 9. Once again, lined up at defensive tackle, pass rushing against the right guard. I believe he gets a piece of this ball. You can see he actually kind of celebrates it afterwards, letting us know that he got a piece of the ball. When you get the end zone angle, you see it kind of occurs right in here. You can see he's trying to walk the guard back. Pat Ricard had a similar progression in his career for the Ravens. Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator during that time. Ricard played defensive tackle and then was moved over to the offense to play some fullback, has parlayed that into an all-pro career, and really exploded his career earnings potential because of the playing fullback and slash tight end now. He's moved away from defense completely. Matlock's a little heavier. I think he's like in the 296, 297 range. Here's that same play from the end zone angle. You can see getting a piece of the football, or at least he says he did, and it goes wayward. I think Kyle Allen was targeting the dig or the in-breaking route over the top of this route by the tight end Zylstra, and it's off target, probably because Matlock gets a piece of it on the rush. This play is the one that I think is indicative of how much time he must spend on the offensive side, and I'll break down what I know about this play concept. I call it a dual read. So normally you would be reading an edge defender. In this case, however, the edge defender, Nowaski, 53, he's apexed out to twins. There's 2 receivers out here, one of which you guys can see on the left-hand side of the screen, one of which is off screen and you cannot. Normally the edge defender's feet would be in this area here, a 5 technique or a wide 5. And so the quarterback and the fullback, in this case Matlock, would be reading that edge defender. Now that edge defender is apexed out. He's widened up, Nowaski. So this means that Matlock must spend a significant amount of time linking up not just the read, but his alignment. When I first saw this dual read in the NFL and what I know of it, you have to have a particular width. And so Matlock's right foot is pretty close to Lance's left foot, but it's got to be at a particular width. They got to be a particular distance away from each other such that this read or dual read can be synced up. And so they're both reacting to the edge defender. Well, it's quite obvious that this is a give because the edge defender is apex so far out. He's essentially too wide to be able to make a play on the running back. Now, the running back, I think it's Patterson, actually brings this all the way back to the other side for a really big gain. I'll talk about that for a moment and then go through the reads briefly. If you know a whole lot about the dual read concept, there's no need for you to necessarily pay attention to this description, but you're getting a double team here. And it's almost like duo here, the way they're treating this. So they are looking, the tight end is clearly looking at the corner. Okay, do I need to combo off? But they're just trying to get some displacement, I think, horizontally and vertically. This looks quite intentional to me, that this could be winded back. The running back brings it all the way across into the boundary. And I'm not sure that it's a designed wind back. I think this double team here, combo, if you want to call it that, is just meant to preserve that backside cutback or bringing it back into the boundary. So let's go over the reads real quick. If you had a standard edge defender 5 technique, when I explained to you that I think Matlock must spend far more time on the offensive side, here's what I mean. If that D-end or edge defender, who's not there, was to go radically down the line of scrimmage, then the way that Lance would read that is a pull, keep for him. And Matlock would read it as bouncing outside. It's hence the name dual read. Other people have different names for it, some of which apply, some do not. They think it's predetermined. It is not. It's a dual read. Conversely, if the edge defender was to radically go upfield to take away the quarterback, which is what some teams do with Lamar Jackson. Actually, that angle is not exactly perfect. Let's do something like this. Front up the quarterback. Then what would happen is Matlock, instead of veering outside to loop around, Matlock knows that's going to be a give to the running back. So he would loop underneath of the edge defender and go get frontside inside linebacker. Sometimes it's a frontside safety. In order to have those reads synced up and be consistent with it, and for the offensive staff to trust it, Matlock has to spend more time on offense. That's an intricate read because he's not just practicing it from his left to his right, like you saw here. He's practicing it to both sides of the field. Finally, a typical fullback play. It's not successful from a Charger standpoint. I may have had the running back wrong on the previous one. My apologies. Just working on a power play. The edge defender stems down. We're talking about this edge defender here. We'll pull this back. He stems down, and so Matlock goes with him. Everything gets jammed up, bottled up in there, if you will, and the backside edge defender or defensive lineman makes the play. I think at this point, Matlock must spend more time on offense. I may be way wrong. Like I said, I don't get the chance to pay attention to the Chargers exclusively because I spend so much time focusing on the Ravens, Lions, and at times the Seahawks as well. But I do know a little bit about the option and that dual read concept, just enough to be dangerous probably. And my suspicion is that he's transitioned to mostly spending time on the offensive side, and the coaching staff, are trying to maximize his downtimes and get him over on the defensive side as well so he can play a smaller umbrella of techniques. That 4-eye that I showed you, occasionally a 3, which is outside shade of the guard. In any case, this was my attempt to just illustrate the versatility that Scott Matlock brings. At this point, I think he's the only player in the NFL who's actively playing both sides of the football. Travis Hunter hasn't played a regular season game yet. We certainly expect him to do so. Ricard used to. He's exclusively a fullback / tight end on the offensive side at this point. Interesting player. Don't really know much about Matlock other than what I covered last year with the Ravens and then saw last Thursday against the Lions. Just fun to think about how they're trying to structure practice and get him prepared for a very wide net of techniques and responsibilities that he has in any given game. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other football fans or Chargers fans in particular would enjoy this film study look at Scott Matlock with some of my thoughts, which is oftentimes mostly conjecture here, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.